Morning light spilled through stained glass, painting the chapel floor in fractured colors. Alina Carter pressed her palms together one last time, whispering words she'd repeated for 18 years. The stone walls of St. Catherine's had sheltered her since she was 6. Now, at 24, she was walking away. Sister Margaret waited in the doorway, eyes wet with unshed tears. In her weathered hands, she held an envelope. "The teaching position in Albany," the old nun said softly. "Are you certain, child?" Alina smoothed the navy dress the sisters had sewn for her. Her chestnut hair was pulled tight, her green eyes steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "I need to find where I belong." The bus to New York City took 3 hours. Alina watched mountains dissolve into hills, then suburbs, then the jagged skyline of Manhattan piercing the sky. Her heart hammered. The letter in her cloth bag felt heavier with each mile. Port Authority swallowed her whole. Diesel fumes. Roasted nuts. Bodies pushing past like she was invisible. She clutched her bag, searching for the information booth. "Miss Carter?" The voice was deep, formal. She turned to find a man in his 50s wearing a crisp black suit and chauffeur's cap. His name tag read Thomas. "Yes, that's me." Relief flooded through her. "Right this way. Mr. Westbrook sent me. We're running behind schedule." He reached for her bag. Alina hesitated. "Mr. Westbrook? I thought I was meeting someone from Albany Academy." Thomas smiled patiently. "Change of plans, miss. The car is waiting." Too nervous to question further, she followed him to a gleaming black Mercedes. The leather seats were softer than anything she'd ever touched. As Thomas drove through city traffic, Alina tried to make sense of it. Maybe Mr. Westbrook was a donor. Maybe he served on the board. The buildings grew taller, more elegant. They crossed a bridge into sprawling estates. Thomas turned onto a private road lined with ancient oaks. At the end stood a mansion that stole her breath. 3 stories of gray stone rose like a fortress, ivy climbing the walls, fountains gleaming in the circular driveway. This was no school. "Thomas, I think there's been a mistake," she whispered. But he was already opening her door. "Mr. Westbrook is expecting you." Her legs trembled as she climbed marble steps. The massive door swung open before she could knock. A stern woman in her 60s appeared, wearing a housekeeper's uniform. "You're late," the woman said curtly. "Mr. Westbrook doesn't tolerate tardiness." "I'm Mrs. Brennan. Follow me." "Wait, please." Alina's voice cracked. "I think there's been a terrible mistake. I'm supposed to be going to a teaching position." Mrs. Brennan's expression softened with confusion. "Teaching position? My dear, you're here for the nanny position. Mr. Westbrook's niece needs supervision." Before Alina could respond, a voice echoed through the marble foyer. "Mrs. Brennan. Is that the agency woman?" Alina looked up. A man descended the grand staircase, and the air left her lungs. Julian Westbrook was perhaps 35, with jet black hair swept back from a face carved from stone. His steel-gray eyes were cold, assessing. His tailored charcoal suit emphasized his tall, powerful frame. Everything about him radiated wealth and danger. "Mr. Westbrook," Mrs. Brennan began, "there seems to be some confusion." Julian's gaze fixed on Alina. She felt pinned in place, a butterfly under glass. He crossed the foyer in long strides, stopping inches away. "You're younger than I expected," he said, his voice rough. "The agency assured me they were sending someone experienced." Alina found her voice. "Sir, I believe there's been a mistake. I'm not from any agency. I was supposed to meet someone about a teaching position. Your driver picked me up by accident." Julian's expression darkened. "Thomas." The chauffeur appeared, face pale. Sir, the agency said to look for a young woman with chestnut hair carrying a blue bag at Port Authority. Miss Carter matched the description perfectly. And you didn't verify her identity. Julian's voice was dangerously quiet. I apologize, Mr. Westbrook. Alina watched the exchange, anxiety rising. Please, if you could just arrange for me to get to Albany, I won't trouble you further. Julian turned back to her. Something flickered in those cold eyes. It's nearly 6. Albany is 3 hours away. You have nowhere to stay once you arrive. I have my interview tomorrow morning, Alina said quietly, meeting his gaze with more courage than she felt. I'll manage. For a long moment, Julian studied her. She couldn't read his expression, but she felt the weight of his scrutiny. Mrs. Brennan, he finally said, tone less harsh. Prepare the blue guest room. Miss Carter will stay here tonight. Thomas will drive her to Albany in the morning. That's very kind, but I couldn't possibly impose. Julian's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. It's not kindness. It's practicality. My mistake. My responsibility to correct it. He glanced at his watch. Dinner is at 8. Mrs. Brennan will show you to your room. He turned and strode toward a study, leaving Alina standing in the vast foyer. The door closed behind him with a definitive click. Mrs. Brennan's expression warmed. Don't mind Mr. Westbrook, dear. He's been through a difficult time. Come along. As Alina followed the housekeeper up the staircase, she couldn't help glancing back at the closed study door. Something about Julian Westbrook troubled her. It wasn't just his cold demeanor. Behind those steel-gray eyes, she'd glimpsed something else. Something broken. The blue guest room was larger than the entire dormitory Alina had shared with 5 other girls at the convent. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, dressed in silk the color of a summer sky. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking manicured gardens. Alina set her simple cloth bag on a chair that probably cost more than everything she owned. A knock at the door made her jump. Mrs. Brennan entered carrying a dress draped over her arm. Mr. Westbrook thought you might need something appropriate for dinner, the housekeeper explained. This belonged to his sister. She's traveling in Europe. I'm sure she wouldn't mind. The dress was beautiful. Soft emerald green that would match Alina's eyes. But accepting it felt wrong. I have a clean dress in my bag, Alina said gently. Mrs. Brennan smiled knowingly. Humor an old woman, dear. Besides, it would please Mr. Westbrook to see his gesture accepted. After the housekeeper left, Alina stood before the gilded mirror, holding the dress against herself. The girl who looked back seemed like a stranger. A bell chimed somewhere in the house. 7 o'clock. 1 hour until dinner. She had never felt more out of place in her entire life. When Alina descended the staircase at 8, the emerald dress flowing around her legs, Julian Westbrook was waiting in the dining room. He stood near the fireplace, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. When he turned, something shifted in his expression. The dress suits you, he said simply. Alina's cheeks warmed. Thank you for your generosity. Sit. It wasn't a request. The dining table could have seated 20, but only 2 places were set at one end. Crystal glasses. Silver cutlery. White candles flickering between them. Mrs. Brennan served the first course in silence. Roasted vegetables, delicate greens, bread that smelled like heaven. Julian watched Alina over the rim of his glass. Tell me about this teaching position. It's at a girls' school in Albany. I'd be teaching literature and history to younger students. And before that? You mentioned a convent. Alina set down her fork carefully. St. Catherine's. I've lived there since I was 6. My parents died in a car accident. The sisters raised me. Something flickered across Julian's face. So you know what it's like to lose everything. It wasn't a question. Yes, she said quietly. I do. He drained his glass, then refilled it from a decanter on the table. And now you're leaving the only home you've ever known to become a teacher. That takes courage. Or desperation. Maybe both, Alina admitted. Julian's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Honesty. How refreshing. The sisters taught me that lies only complicate things. The sisters were wrong. His voice had gone cold again. Sometimes lies are the only thing keeping us alive. Before Alina could respond, a door slammed somewhere in the house. Footsteps echoed through the halls, quick and unsteady. Julian's entire body went rigid. A young girl burst into the dining room. She couldn't have been more than 12, with wild dark hair and eyes red from crying. Her dress was torn at the sleeve. Uncle Julian, I hate you. I hate this place. I hate everything. She was sobbing now, words tumbling out in a broken stream. Julian rose slowly, his face carefully blank. Claire. Go to your room. No. You can't make me. You don't care about me. You never cared about anyone. Claire. His voice was a warning. But the girl's eyes had found Alina. She stared at her with something like desperation. Who are you? Claire whispered. Alina stood, instinct overriding fear. My name is Alina. I'm just a guest here. Are you the new nanny? Claire's voice cracked. Did he hire you to replace Sarah? No, I'm not. I'm a teacher. Or I will be. There was a mistake tonight. Claire turned back to Julian, her face twisted with pain. You fired Sarah. You fired the only person who was kind to me. You're a monster. Sarah was stealing from this house, Julian said flatly. I have security footage. She's lucky I didn't press charges. You're lying. Sarah would never do that. Go. To. Your. Room. Each word was sharp as broken glass. Claire ran from the dining room, her sobs echoing up the staircase. Silence fell like a guillotine. Julian stood frozen, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Then, in one violent motion, he swept his glass off the table. It shattered against the marble floor, amber liquid spreading like blood. I'm sorry, Alina said softly. Don't. His voice was raw. Don't pity me. I don't. But that girl is in pain. You know nothing about her. Or me. He turned away, but not before Alina saw it. The anguish in his eyes. The way his hands trembled. You're right, she said. I don't know you. But I know what it's like to be 12 and terrified and alone. I know what it's like to lose the person who made you feel safe. Julian's shoulders tensed. For a moment, she thought he might lash out again. Instead, he spoke so quietly she almost didn't hear. Her parents died 6 months ago. My brother and his wife. Plane crash over the Atlantic. Claire was their only child. Now she's mine. And I have no idea how to help her. The confession hung in the air between them. Alina took a step closer. Let me talk to her. You're leaving in the morning. I know. But maybe I can help tonight. Julian finally looked at her. Really looked at her. And in that moment, something shifted. Some invisible wall began to crack. Room 204. Second floor. East wing. Thank you. As Alina left the dining room, she felt his eyes on her back. She didn't know it yet, but everything had just changed. Her life. His life. Claire's life. All of it balanced on the edge of a knife. Alina found Claire sitting on her bed, knees pulled to her chest. The room was a hurricane of discarded clothes, broken picture frames, and books scattered across the floor. The girl's face was buried in her arms. "Go away," Claire said without looking up. Alina closed the door softly behind her. She didn't approach. Instead, she sat on the floor near the window, giving the girl space. "When I was 8, Alina said quietly, I broke every window in the convent chapel. 17 windows. All that beautiful stained glass, shattered." Claire lifted her head slightly. "Sister Margaret found me standing in the middle of it all, bleeding from my hands, screaming at God for taking my parents. I told her I hated him. I hated the world. I hated being alive. What did she do?" Claire's voice was small. "She sat with me in the broken glass and let me scream until I had no voice left. Then she said something I've never forgotten. She said, 'Grief doesn't make you bad, Claire. It makes you human. But what you do with that grief, that's what defines you.'" Claire was quiet for a long moment. "Then, I called you Claire. Did I?" Alina smiled gently. "I suppose I did." The girl's lower lip trembled. Sarah was the only one who understood. She'd lost her mother too. We'd talk about it. And now she's gone, and Uncle Julian says she's a thief, but I don't believe him. He just wanted her gone because he wants everyone gone. He hates me. He wishes I'd died instead of them. That's not true. How would you know? You just met him." Alina thought of Julian's face when Claire had run from the room. The anguish. The helplessness. "Because I saw the way he looked at you. Like you were the most precious thing in his world and he was terrified of breaking you." Claire wiped her eyes roughly. "He doesn't know how to talk to me. Everything he says comes out wrong. And I'm so angry all the time. I can't stop it." "You don't have to stop it. You just have to find healthier ways to let it out." "Like breaking windows?" Claire's lips twitched. "Almost a smile. Or writing. Or painting. Or talking to someone who gets it." Claire looked at her then, really looked at her. "Will you stay?" Alina's heart clenched. "Claire, I can't. I have a job waiting for me in Albany. A whole new life. Please." The girl's voice broke. "Just for a little while. Just until I figure out how to breathe again." Alina closed her eyes. She thought of Sister Margaret. The teaching position. Her carefully planned future dissolving like morning mist. "I'll talk to your uncle," she heard herself say. Claire's face transformed. For the first time, she looked like a child instead of a wounded animal. "Thank you," she whispered. Julian was still in the dining room, standing at the window, staring into the dark gardens. The shattered glass had been cleaned up. A fresh drink sat untouched on the table. He didn't turn when Alina entered. "How is she?" he asked. "Broken. Grieving. Angry. Scared. So nothing's changed. She needs someone who understands what she's going through." Julian turned then, his face unreadable. "Are you volunteering, Miss Carter?" Alina took a breath. "What if I stayed? Not as a nanny. As a companion. A tutor. Someone Claire can talk to. You have a teaching position waiting." "I know. Why would you give that up for a child you just met?" "Because 6 months ago, I was that child. And if someone hadn't stayed for me, I don't know if I'd be standing here now." Julian studied her for a long moment. Then he moved to the table, pulled out a checkbook, and began writing. "Name your price." Alina blinked. "Excuse me? Everyone has a price, Miss Carter. Name yours." Something cold slid through her chest. I'm not doing this for money. Then you're a fool. He tore out the check, held it toward her. 20,000 for 3 months. That's more than you'd make teaching in a year. Alina stared at the check. At the zeros. At the contempt in his eyes. You think I'm like everyone else in your life, don't you? She said quietly. You think I want something from you. That I'm just another person who'll take your money and leave the moment something better comes along. Aren't you? She should have been angry. Instead, she felt sad. Keep your money, Mr. Westbrook. I'll stay for 3 months. You'll pay me a fair salary, whatever you paid Sarah. And when those 3 months are over, I'll leave. Not because I got a better offer. But because that's what we agreed. Julian's expression shifted. Surprise. Confusion. Something else she couldn't name. Why? He asked, and for the first time, he sounded almost vulnerable. Because Claire deserves someone who sees her as more than a paycheck. And because I think, somewhere under all that ice, you do too. She turned to leave. Miss Carter. She paused. Alina. Call me Alina. Alina. Her name on his lips sent an unexpected shiver through her. Thank you. She nodded and walked away, not trusting herself to speak. Behind her, Julian stood alone in the empty dining room, the check still in his hand. For the first time in 6 months, something inside him began to thaw. And it terrified him. 3 weeks passed like a fever dream. Alina moved into a room near Claire's. They established routines. Morning lessons. Afternoon walks through the gardens. Evening conversations that slowly chipped away at the girl's armor. Claire began to smile again. To laugh, sometimes. Julian watched from a distance, never quite joining them but always present. Alina would catch him standing in doorways, his expression unreadable. He began staying for dinner. Not speaking much, but listening. Once, when Claire told a joke, Alina saw his lips curve. Almost a smile. The house felt less like a mausoleum and more like a home. Then, on a Thursday morning, everything shattered. Alina came downstairs to find Mrs. Brennan in tears. Claire was screaming in Julian's study. And when Alina pushed open the door, she saw Julian standing behind his desk, face pale as death, staring at a document in his hands. Claire whirled on her. Tell him. Tell him Sarah didn't steal anything. Claire, what's happening? Julian's eyes met hers. Cold again. Shuddered. The security footage was fabricated, he said flatly. Sarah never stole from this house. Alina's blood went cold. Then why did you fire her? Because I was afraid. Of what? He looked at Claire, then back at Alina. And in his eyes, she saw the truth. Of losing her the way I lost everyone else. The silence in Julian's study was suffocating. Claire stared at her uncle, face contorted with fresh betrayal. You lied. You destroyed Sarah's life because you were afraid? Claire, please, Julian began, but the girl was already running from the room. Alina heard her footsteps pounding up the stairs. A door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. She turned to Julian. Explain. Now. He sank into his chair, suddenly looking older. Exhausted. Sarah was getting close to Claire. Too close. Claire was starting to trust her. To depend on her. And I couldn't watch Claire lose another person she loved. So you made the choice for her. Yes. By framing an innocent woman. By making Claire believe someone else had abandoned her. Julian's jaw tightened. I was trying to protect her. From what? From caring about someone? From healing? Alina's voice rose despite herself. You didn't protect her, Julian. You wounded her even deeper. I know that now. His voice cracked. I know. Alina pressed her hands to her temples. Sarah. Where is she now? Philadelphia. Working as a clerk in a department store. I've had someone keeping tabs on her. Of course you have. Alina moved to the window, staring out at the gardens. You need to make this right. How? How do I fix this? She turned back to him. You bring Sarah back. You tell Claire the truth. All of it. And you apologize. She'll hate me even more. Maybe. But at least you'll have given her the truth. That's more than you've given her so far. Julian stood, moved toward her. He stopped just inches away, close enough that she could see the lines of sleeplessness around his eyes, smell the faint scent of cedar and smoke that clung to him. And what about you? He asked quietly. Will you hate me too? Alina's breath caught. Somewhere in the past 3 weeks, something had shifted between them. Glances that lasted too long. Accidental touches that sent electricity through her skin. Words left unspoken but hanging in the air like smoke. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me wants to. But another part understands why you did it. You've lost everyone you loved. Your brother. Your sister-in-law. And now you're raising a child you're terrified of failing. I understand that fear, Julian. I just don't agree with your methods. His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched her cheek. The gesture was so unexpected, so tender, that Alina froze. You see too much, he whispered. You've seen through every wall I've built. Maybe that's what you need. Someone who won't let you hide. His thumb traced her jawline. You're leaving in 6 weeks. Our agreement. I know. I don't want you to go. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Alina's heart hammered. Julian, I can't, this isn't why I stayed. I know. You stayed for Claire. But tell me you don't feel this too. She couldn't lie. Not to him. I feel it. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. Then stay. Not for 3 months. Stay. I can't just give up everything I planned. Why not? Plans change. Life changes. Because I'm afraid. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I'm afraid that if I stay, I'll lose myself in your world. In you. And when it ends, because these things always end, I'll have nothing left. Julian's expression shifted. Pain. Understanding. You're right to be afraid. Everyone I love eventually leaves. One way or another. He stepped back, breaking the spell. I'll contact Sarah tomorrow. I'll make it right. Alina nodded, not trusting her voice. As she left the study, she pressed a hand to her chest, trying to slow her racing heart. What was she doing? She'd come here by accident. Stayed out of compassion. But now, somehow, she was falling for a broken man who didn't know how to love without destroying things. This couldn't end well. She found Claire in her room, curled on the bed, staring at nothing. Did you know? Claire asked. Did you know he lied? No. I swear to you, I didn't. Why does everyone lie to me? Why does everyone leave? Alina sat beside her, pulling the girl into her arms. Not everyone. I'm still here. For now. But you're leaving too. In 6 weeks. The words hit like a blade. I know, Alina whispered. I'm sorry. Claire clung to her, and Alina felt the girl's tears soaking into her shirt. I wish you were my mom, Claire said, voice muffled. I wish you could stay forever. Alina's eyes burned. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. But even as she said it, she knew the truth. She couldn't stay. This wasn't her life. This wasn't her world. No matter how much her heart was beginning to wish it was. 3 days later, Sarah returned. Julian met her at the door, and Alina watched from the top of the stairs as he apologized. As he offered her a settlement far beyond what she'd lost. As he asked, voice breaking, if she would consider returning to work for Claire. Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she looked up at where Claire stood beside Alina, the girl's face streaked with tears. "I'll come back," Sarah said. "But not for you, Mr. Westbrook. For her." Claire ran down the stairs and threw herself into Sarah's arms. And Alina felt something inside her crack. Because if Sarah was back, there was no reason for Alina to stay. That night, Julian found her packing her few belongings. He stood in the doorway, saying nothing. "Finally, you're leaving early. Sarah's here now. Claire has what she needs. And what about what I need?" Alina turned, and the look in his eyes nearly broke her. "Julian, don't." "Don't what?" "Don't tell you that you've become essential to me? That watching you with Claire, seeing the way you've brought light back into this house, has made me realize how empty my life was before? Stop. I'm falling in love with you, Alina." The words hung in the air like a gunshot. Alina's hands trembled. "You don't love me. You love the idea of someone who can fix everything. But I can't fix you, Julian. Only you can do that. Then help me. Stay and help me." "I can't." Her voice broke. "Because I'm falling too, and it terrifies me. Because if I stay, I'll lose myself completely. And I can't do that. Not even for you." Julian's face closed off. The walls slamming back into place. "Then go. Julian, please understand. I said go." His voice was ice. "Clearly I was wrong about you. You're just like everyone else." The words cut deeper than any blade. Alina grabbed her bag and walked past him, out into the hallway. She made it to the staircase before she heard it. The crash. The splintering of wood. She turned back to see Julian's fist through the wall, blood streaming down his knuckles. And she ran. Alina made it to Albany. She took the teaching position. Moved into a small apartment with peeling wallpaper and a window that overlooked a parking lot. She taught literature to girls who reminded her of herself at that age. Lost. Searching. Hopeful. But at night, she dreamed of gray stone mansions and steel gray eyes. She dreamed of Claire's laughter and Julian's rare smiles. She dreamed of what she'd left behind. 6 weeks passed like purgatory. Then, on a Tuesday evening, there was a knock at her door. Alina opened it to find Claire standing in the hallway, Sarah just behind her. "Claire? What are you doing here? Does your uncle know?" "He sent us," Claire said quietly. "He's dying, Alina." The world tilted. "What?" Sarah stepped forward. "Mr. Westbrook has a rare heart condition. He's known for years. The doctors gave him 2 years, maybe 3. That's why he pushed everyone away. He didn't want anyone to watch him deteriorate." Alina's legs went weak. She gripped the doorframe. "No. No, he would have told me." "He didn't tell anyone," Claire said, tears streaming down her face. "Not even me. I found the medical records in his study. He's been refusing treatment because he said there was nothing left worth fighting for." "Why are you telling me this?" Claire grabbed her hands. "Because you're what's worth fighting for. You and me. We're what he needs. He's been getting worse since you left. He won't eat. Won't sleep. He just sits in his study staring at nothing. Please, Alina. Please come back." Alina pressed a hand to her mouth, mind reeling. All this time, Julian had been carrying this alone. All his walls, his coldness, his fear of losing people, it all made terrible sense now. He lied to me, she whispered. Because he loved you, Sarah said gently. And he didn't want you to stay out of pity. Alina closed her eyes. She thought of her carefully planned life in Albany. The independence she'd fought for. The freedom she'd craved. And she thought of Julian's face when he'd told her he was falling in love with her. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Let me grab my things. The drive back took 3 hours. Claire held Alina's hand the entire time, as if afraid she'd disappear. When they pulled up to the mansion, it looked different. Darker. Like the light had gone out of it. Mrs. Brennan met them at the door, relief flooding her face. Thank God you're here. He's in his study. He hasn't left in days. Alina walked through the marble foyer, heart hammering against her ribs. She pushed open the study door. Julian sat at his desk, head in his hands. He looked up at the sound, and the shock on his face nearly broke her. Alina? She crossed the room, stopped in front of him. Why didn't you tell me? He stood slowly, understanding dawning. Claire. Answer the question. Because I didn't want your pity. I didn't want you to stay because you felt obligated. You're an idiot, she said, voice shaking. A brilliant, stubborn, infuriating idiot. I know. You pushed me away because you thought you were protecting me. Yes. Just like you pushed Sarah away. Just like you've pushed away everyone who ever cared about you. Julian's jaw tightened. I'm going to die, Alina. Maybe in 2 years. Maybe sooner. I won't put you through that. That's not your choice to make. It's the only choice that makes sense. Alina stepped closer, close enough to see the exhaustion etched into his face, the way his hands trembled. What if I told you I'm choosing to stay anyway? What if I told you that I'd rather have 2 years with you than a lifetime without you? His breath caught. Don't say that. Don't, you deserve better. I deserve the truth. And I deserve to make my own choices. She reached up, cupping his face in her hands. I love you, Julian. I've been running from it for 6 weeks, but it's true. I love you. And I'm not leaving. Alina, please. His voice cracked. I can't lose you. Then don't push me away. Tears streamed down her face. Fight. Get the treatment. Fight for us. For Claire. For whatever time we have left. For a long moment, Julian just stared at her. Then, slowly, his walls crumbled. He pulled her against him, burying his face in her hair. His body shook with silent sobs. I'm scared, he whispered. I'm so scared. I know. I am too. She held him tighter. But we'll be scared together. They stood like that for a long time, two broken people clinging to each other in the darkness. Finally, Julian pulled back, wiping his eyes. The treatment is experimental. There's only a 30% chance it'll work. Then we'll fight for that 30%. And if it doesn't work? Then we'll make every moment count. He searched her face, as if memorizing it. Then, gently, he kissed her. It was soft and desperate and full of everything he couldn't say. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you. Lucky for you, I'm not going anywhere. The door creaked open. Claire stood there, tears streaming down her face, Sarah's hand on her shoulder. Does this mean you're staying? Claire asked. Alina held out her arm, and Claire ran to them, throwing herself into their embrace. I'm staying, Alina said. For as long as you'll have me. Julian wrapped his arms around both of them, and for the first time in years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. The treatment was brutal. There were days when Julian couldn't leave his bed. Days when the pain was so intense he couldn't speak. Days when Alina wondered if she'd made the right choice. But there were also good days. Days when Julian sat in the garden with Claire, teaching her about the flowers. Days when he laughed at Alina's terrible attempts to cook. Days when they curled up together in the library, reading in companionable silence. Slowly, impossibly, he began to improve. 6 months later, the doctors called it a miracle. The experimental treatment was working. Julian's heart was healing. He would live. On their wedding day, a year after Alina had first walked into his mansion by mistake, Julian stood at the altar with tears in his eyes. "You saved me," he whispered as they exchanged vows. "No," Alina said, smiling through her own tears. "We saved each other." Claire stood beside them as maid of honor, grinning wider than the sun. Sarah dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Mrs. Brennan sobbed openly in the front row. And as Julian kissed his bride, the entire room erupted in applause. That night, as they slow danced in the garden under a sky full of stars, Julian held Alina close. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Giving up teaching? Your life in Albany?" Alina looked up at him, at this man who had been so broken and was now whole. At the mansion that had become her home. At the family she had found by accident. "Not for a single moment," she said. "This is where I was always meant to be." "I love you," Julian whispered. "I love you too." And as they swayed together in the moonlight, surrounded by the life they'd built from ashes, Alina knew that sometimes the greatest plans were the ones you never made. Sometimes you just had to trust in the beautiful, terrifying power of fate. And hold on tight when it carried you exactly where you needed to go. The end.